that a lot of you want to talk about, which is powers of attorney. Okay. What are we talking about here? What is it? And why does someone need a power of attorney? We probably all know somebody who has or is potentially likely to lose capacity. Losing mental capacity, the Mental Capacity Act, MCA, is what determines whether somebody is actually not able to look after their own affairs. Okay, so what does it mean? Well, a power of attorney, if you've gifted it to somebody before you've lost your capacity, means that someone else can legally make decisions for you if you can't make them yourself. So you do this when you're okay, you're quite well, you're quite good at things, and you think, yeah, I'm okay, but I know that potentially I could lose capacity. So if I do, these are the people that I would like to look after my affairs. Now, in England and Wales, that's known as a lasting power of attorney, and also the same thing in Scotland, but they have it slightly differently in Scotland. They have one single power of attorney rather than two. I'll talk a bit more about that later. Without one, as it says, your family cannot automatically manage your affairs, even if you're married or your children wish to act for you. So just having a joint bank account, for example, with your other half, or maybe children having access to your bank account to be able to pay your bills, legally, if you've lost capacity, they can't do that. Let me show you this little video here and it explains a little bit more about it.
Loss of capacity. The burden placed on loved ones and trusted people. We are all living longer, and it is often the case that we will suffer a loss of capacity at some point, whether from dementia, physical infirmity, or from an accident. When involved, social services have a duty of care to inform the Court of Protection, and the Court of Protection have a duty to protect vulnerable people. To do this, they freeze bank accounts and other assets, preventing your loved ones helping to pay bills or even accessing joint bank accounts. The British Banking Association tells us that if you are the joint account holder and the other joint account holder
Sorry.
becomes mentally incapable, you do not automatically have the right to access the account unless you have a lasting power of attorney, enduring power of attorney, or an order from the Court of Protection. The Court of Protection will appoint a deputy to manage your finances. The deputy will often be a retired solicitor, and the Court of Protection will charge fees for providing the deputy services. For a family member or a trusted person to take over, they would need to make an application for a deputyship order. This application process takes somewhere between 9 and 12 months, and there are costs involved with making the application. These costs are typically in excess of £2,000, plus additional annual charges. Unfortunately, your money cannot be used to pay the application fees, and the family member or trusted person has to pay. Furthermore, applications are often rejected in favor of the court-appointed deputy, and the fees are non-refundable. Would you want to protect against this eventuality?
So that is the process that you would need to go through, or if you lost capacity, other people would need to go through for you in order to gain effectively power of attorney or an order from the Court of Protection. Not easy, not quick, and not very pleasant either, because there's no guarantee that you as an individual will be granted the opportunity to look after this person that you know and love and knows and loves you. So it is not a good place to be. The power of attorney being placed by that individual before they lose capacity, and in case they lose capacity, is a far better place to be because it allows for that opportunity to be covered. So I've got a couple of videos here. Again, I'm going to see if these will work for me. These are actually YouTube videos that show real life examples of where there was no power of attorney in place and what actually happened. The first one we're going to look at with the lovely couple there on the left-hand side. This is from The One Show on BBC from a couple of years ago with Dominic Littlewood. He's actually going to walk you through just a couple of minutes there. Lady tells about the experience she had when her husband had an accident, and the one underneath there is much quicker, more recent as well. But as I say, I'll save that one for a minute. So let me just see if I can get this to work here. Here we go. And okay, so I'm just going to bring this into play here. Here we go.
World full of noise and uncertainty.
You get the
is the
ads.
investment platform that backs you.
Brother, you might need to unmute it. I'm not sure. Yeah, you might need to optimize your sound on the Zoom when sharing the sound. Huh?
Yeah, see if I can do that.
It's working now, I heard it. No, no, no. Okay. So yeah, it's just to optimize the sound. There you go. Maybe the subtitles could work as well, Graeme.
Her power of attorney over his finances before the accident. With that in place, she would have had complete control over all of his money. Instead,
sorry about that. As I said, I didn't realize you couldn't hear it. I'll just wind it back and we'll play it again with the subtitles on. Apologies.
You're good, bro. You're good.
6 years ago, Heather Bateman's husband, Michael, was knocked down on a country road.
I saw him 1 minute, the next minute I saw him, he was lying on the ground. An ambulance came and he never stood up or spoke again. It was the most horrific thing.
Michael fell into a coma. They'd been married for 28 years, and as the main breadwinner, his wages paid the household bills. Had you both made plans for the future?
We'd written our wills. I assumed that would be all I would need for the rest of our lives.
But as Michael was still alive, Heather discovered she wasn't allowed to use any of his money. Heather couldn't legally have access to Michael's accounts whilst he was ill because he hadn't granted her power of attorney over his finances before the accident. With that in place, she would have had complete control over all of his money. Instead, she had to apply to the Court of Protection. That is a court set up to protect the assets of vulnerable people. Lawyer Julia Avery is an expert in this field.
Lasting powers of attorney are a document you put in place now so that the right kind of decisions, the decisions you've made for yourself, can be made by someone else for you at a time when you can't do it.
Heather finally got permission to manage her husband's finances, but with very strict conditions attached.
I could never write a cheque more than £500. Our daughter had just started university and the fees were over £1,000. So I was sort of being asked to ask permission to pay my own daughter's university fees.
Having power of attorney could have saved Heather significant costs and a great deal of distress. After nearly 3 years in a coma, her husband Michael died.
I cried when Michael died, and I cried when I was released from the Court of Protection, that at last I was free. I wouldn't want anybody to go through that if they could avoid it.
Here we go. Okay. So that's a story there for that particular client. Yeah, very, very difficult to deal with. Very unpleasant. Okay, I've got one more here. This was a little bit later, this particular one. It's a much shorter video, and it explains what happened when a mother and her daughter wanted to help out their grandmother. It was actually during COVID and what actually happened. So hopefully this one will play as well. Here we go. I'll put this on to
No volume on there, bro.
My mother is in the back of the car here. She is a nurse. She is a fully qualified nurse who is wishing to care for her own mother. And here we have an incredible use of police time to take my 97-year-old grandmother back into a care home where she is deteriorating, where we haven't been able to see her for 9 months. Nan, I love you and we are going to fight for you. Yeah, because you know why we're not going to stop filming this? Because everyone needs to see how ridiculous the situation is.
Yeah. Okay. Apologies to say if you couldn't quite hear that very well, but hopefully, as I say, you did manage to, in the end, anyway, as I say, capture that one. Okay, just see if I can get this back in here. Right, here we go. Say that was a lady who, as I say, was being helped out of her care home. It was during COVID time, but that's somebody who didn't have a power of attorney for health and welfare. Obviously, the first one was also health and welfare, but also particularly with the money side of it and how she suffered. I do know a story which I tell regularly when I talk to my clients about a power of attorney. And it's a true story. My friend Richard, I'm actually going to be doing his will for, sorry, his mother's will for him next week. We're going to sit down together, but he's a friend of mine. He's about a year or two older than me. This was about 2019, I think, similar time. And he is married. He has a daughter who lives in America and a couple of grandchildren. And it was around about this time of year they have spring break, which is a big thing over in America, as you're probably aware. And it's like the end of the winter, you know, they all go to the beach and sit themselves freezing cold, but you know, they just enjoy a bit of time with the family. And his wife said to him, "Oh, Richard, shall we go over to Tina, her name is, shall we go over to America and see our daughter, you know, and the grandkids?" He goes, "This is really difficult. I've got loads on, etc. Love to go, but you know, give them a cuddle for me, and I'll see them when I get back." You know, that's type of thing. He couldn't do much more than that. Anyway, so she went over to America, all good. And then, as I say, he thought, right, well, he does what every married man does when their wife's away on a trip away. He gets a load of DIY jobs done. This is what we do. So he thought, right, his plan was for that weekend, he was going to do all the garden. He says, "I'm going to get the garden done on Sunday. It's going to be absolute jungle out there. I need to get that sorted." He said, "But on Saturday, I'm going to go and play golf with my mates and have a beer afterwards. But before I do that, I'm going to do a quick bit of DIY." And a bit of DIY he was going to do was